And a very beautiful morning to you from wherever you're joining us on Dominion Television today, June 5th, 2026. It's such a wonderful day to be alive and to talk about something important today. So you're welcome to the big story on Dominion Television, where we unpack the issues shaping our future and the decisions defining our world. So today, our focus is on the question that sits at the intersection of climate governance, business, and survival. And the question is, what role does environmental awareness play in achieving the sustainable development goals in Nigeria? Of course, I know you know, or if you don't, there are about 17 goals of the SDG in the world as we speak. And of course, how will those goals become something that is a reality in the context of the Nigerian state? That is one of the conversations we'll be having today. Of course, joining us for that conversation is Abiodun Moronkeji. He's a legal professional, entrepreneur, and environmental sustainability advocate with expertise spanning across international environmental law, compliance systems, energy management, and global environmental frameworks as well. So, but these and many more are the conversations we'll be having today on this very show. And of course, the big story this morning: why is environmental situation important? Why should we have these kind of conversations at this point in time? There are many reasons to that, and we'll get into them precept upon precept and line upon lines. And today, I'm joined with Moronke G this morning. Good morning to you this morning, Abiodun.
Good morning, presenter. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you today. All right, so let's get into the conversation.
Okay.
I know for one, some would say, of course, a good number of persons would believe that it is important to know that there's a particular book that says, you shall know the truth, and the truth that you know shall set you free. And some would say also in our local parlance that if you don't know, you don't know. Like person we don't know, no go no, that kind of thing. But then that's exactly where I'm going to start with, to put it into practical context, to say, how critical is awareness to ensuring that we fulfill the SDG goals in Nigeria, for context.
Okay. To achieve those SDG goals, it has to boil down to a lot of awareness. You see, awareness spawns responsibility in the citizens and even among stakeholders. And also responsibility then all triggers action. So when people are responsible to an extent, they become a part of the movement. So they don't just see it as a governmental thing. So it becomes a personal thing. You understand? So when you inculcate that into your lifestyle, over time, it becomes an habit. I mean, being environmentally aware, it becomes an habit. And you know that habit, in turn, becomes a lifestyle. So that is one of the ways I believe awareness plays a crucial role in SDG. People need to be aware. A whole lot of people don't even know that we have budgets and allocations for environmental remediation, for environmental sanitation. Look at the Ogoni IPREP remediations, the Shell Ogoni IPREP remediation. Do you know how much was disbursed into that project? Billions of dollars. And that also can be an avenue for employment, for the youth in that vicinity. So awareness plays a crucial role in spawning responsibility, and also in instilling citizens to taking environmental awareness action.
Absolutely. And I think that's why we have you here, to tell us about some of these things, because sometimes there are many issues that are disturbing the world. Currently in Nigeria, we are faced with different issues of terrorism, others. Every sector is having one issue or the other, and I think it's very important that we have these kind of conversations. But I know I've checked into your profile and I see that you wear many caps. For one, you are a legal expert, based on your antecedents and some of the profiles you've garnered quite impressively. And at the other end, you're an entrepreneur. You do quite a number of things as well. So I'm forced to maybe ask you a few questions about that, particularly you managing those different, because I think you also have international exposure, which is something that is of importance in this kind of debate. But let's come to the SDG goals. SDG goal 4, number 4, is quality education. And just a few weeks ago, some students in Nigeria, I don't intend to go into politics, but let's talk about this and how Nigeria can better deliver on the SDG goals. And I think that's one of the advocacy that you also herald as a person. So let's talk about that. Students were abducted and their teachers as well, about 47 of them. I know you know, it's all in the news, all over the internet and everywhere. So as we speak, 2 weeks on, they are still in the bush. One. Second point, according to the United Nations currently, the out-of-school children we have in the country is in millions in this country. About 18 million the last time I checked. And I think it's not just dropping, it's increasing by the day. And that's for many reasons. For one, again, yesterday, WAEC was being conducted across many parts of the country. And it was very sad and unfortunate that students were writing exams at 10 o'clock with just one headlamp inside the examination hall. And you imagine, how do you expect education to be a thing? So if you have to deliver on United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Agenda 4, which is quality education, how can Nigeria get to that point?
That's nice. That's a nice question. You see, the environment plays a crucial role in the habitants of men. See, it's not just about the food we eat. It boils down to transboundary movements. I mean, movements of diseases from one community to another. You know, when we have unemployment spawning up in the country, you will have issues of insurgency. You see, the issues of insurgency doesn't really affect developed nations. It affects more of developing and underdeveloped nations. Due to what? Okay. Due to what? Due to poverty, unemployment, bad governance, porous border effects, or weakened borders. 2 months ago, I said something on radio when this insurgency, these JAWS issues and all that. I said, we know areas that are insurgency prone areas in the country, and we know areas that are non-insurgency prone areas in the country. I said we had there was an attack in Ilorin, then in Ondo State. Then I called on radio. I said we don't want banditry in Ibadan. I said in those areas, hold local authorities accountable, because you can't tell me how would bandits transbound into your environment. With that, we have interstate borders, we have international borders, and we have inter-community borders. So we have people that are in the ends of affairs of those borders. So if an alien is coming into a community, are they flying in? They are passing through roads. They are most of the in the news. We even hear that some of the bandits are enter the community with bikes and AK-47s and all that. So it boils down to the issue of weak border and porous border. So I think one of the issues here is the Nigerian government and the citizen itself should take serious responsibilities, or should take personal responsibilities on putting eyes in the ends of affairs of these inter-community borders. Because I believe if your border is secure to an extent, you won't have insurgency flying into your community. And if we according to the news, they said most of these insurgents guys are migrate from Niger down. They don't want to admit that some of them are Nigerians, because we believe that Nigerians wouldn't want to hurt a fellow Nigerian. So if it's the issue of aliens coming into a community to attack, then it's a border issue. Then that should be checkmate.
Sorry, let's exfoliate that a bit now.
Okay.
What should be the place of the United Nations? Because SDG is a UN organization sort of way.
Yeah.
And I know they have a responsibility. I know they disburse funds. I know that for sure, because I've seen quite a number of that in their charter. I know a lot of things they do across regions that filled with or that are facing or battling insurgency or this kind of case, just to ensure that the SDG goals, because remember it was from MDG, Millennium Development Goals, to SDG, and now SDG is going to round off in just a few more years, based on the targets they have for it now. So we understand that this is now a problem. There's lack of quality education in the country, Nigeria. But I'm asking you now, what do you think should be the place of international organizations, United Nations bodies, and NGOs from across the world in ensuring that Nigeria gets it right in terms of education?
Well, the main issue here has to boil down with Nigeria is a member of the United Nations. So I believe Nigeria adopted the SDG goals from the United Nations.
Yeah, go on.
You understand? So for a country like Nigeria, number one, we need Nigeria needs to upscale budget when it comes to education. We need to, if you're looking at a whole lot of how would I put it? If you're looking at a whole lot of budgets here and there, or if you look at Nigerian budget here and there, how many percentage of the budget is being set aside for education? And we all need to know that an educated nation is a developed nation. So that's just how it is. But you see, in terms of the SDG 4, what UN has been doing now you see this, you see the main issue here is it has to boil down to the citizens themselves. And listen, now you see on the SDG 4, then I used to donate stipends
Personally from your own
personally
efforts.
from my pocket. I think the last time I did was 18 euros from my pocket to the UN SDG 4 goals. So if individuals can come up with that kind of a reality that education is not just a government entity, it's not just a governmental entity, it's something that we all have to contribute towards. Apart from the fact that when we were schooling, we had a lot of out of school teachers teaching us stuff outside school. You understand? So these are one of the things that people need to put in place. Education is not a core government responsibility. It's a citizens-based initiative.
All right.
You understand? So when people put that into consideration, then we have so many schools are not funded by the government. Some schools are funded by missionaries. Some schools are funded by NGOs. Some schools are funded by community-based initiatives. Just one or two communities or one or two people in the community coming together and creating schools. You see, as a person, I understand the value of education, and you will not see me in a point where people talk down on the value of education. No.
Very important. Let's take it broader now, okay. Because like I said, the goals are about 17 of them.
Okay.
I think the last one is partnership for the goals, and I think that's one of the advocacy means to tell people to also be contributory towards this or achieving the goals, right? But let's take it. I served in Benue State,
okay.
And one of the problems that I saw while in that state was flooding. Right, and I also checked into data. Nigeria has one of the highest deforestation rates in the world. I can't put a number to it, but it's at a very high rate as we speak. We understand many of our timbers are being logged off illegally, and this is one of the problems we are facing. So we have the issue of deforestation, flooding, poor waste management practices in the country, maybe desertification as well. We understand the northern hemisphere in the country is faced with that problem as well. But do you think our environmental challenge in all is more about policy failure or public awareness gap? What do you think, based on what you've done, the works and the projects you embarked upon?
Well, I think it has to do with more of awareness here.
Environmental awareness.
It has to do with more of environmental awareness.
Not policy. We have policies enough to help us get to that point.
We are still getting there, because if we were to look at a lot of policies, though we are trying, at least you can see that solar stuff are spawning up now. I think in the country we have a few amounts of EVs running here and there. I mean, people are moving from fuel vehicles to electric vehicles. And we all know that the basic cause of this greenhouse gases emissions and the greenhouse effects and all that, as the emissions of fossil fuels, those are the basic. Fossil fuels, like burning of firewood in the house, where you're supposed to use rechargeable issues, you're using fuel like charcoal, like people that cooks with charcoals in the house due to low cost of income, and all that. So I think in terms of policy, Nigeria needs to upscale environmental policies to meet up, because I was in a meeting a couple of days ago and I said if we were to look at a lot of things coming up right now, in the next 10 years, I wish sure Nigeria is going to meet up with environmental demands, putting one of the things in check right now, one of the indicators we have in the countries right now. That's just one of the issues we're having here. So Nigerians needs to scale up SDG, needs to scale up their SDG policies to meet up with reality. I mean, to meet up with real demands, and also spawn up awareness in people. You see, when people are aware, so when you know that the single use of a plastic can take almost 400 years to degrade, then you tend to use better. Then restaurants get to know that, okay, we are not supposed to use plastic for packing food. We can use biopacks, use fiber packs and all that, because plastics takes a longer time to degrade. And when we have a whole lot of plastic clogging the resources of the landfills, the water bodies and all that. There's
even a projection that before 2050, we are going to have more bottles in the oceans than fishes. I think it's one of the claims. But then let's like a question you said now, that projection can be changed with nice and sustainable SDG policies. Absolutely. I wanted to take you up on the policies that you mentioned. I was opportune to be at a plenary. I don't want to mention the state, but I was at the State House of Assembly, and there were discussions about terrorists using forests as enclaves. It's still ongoing right now, even at the Senate level. And there were a lot of persons, I was so surprised, lawmakers debating that every forest should be cut down. And that shocked me for the very first time in my life, to see these people that are called lawmakers, that are supposed to understand what the environment requires for us to live. They said they should bring down all the forests. So I was asking, what is the problem? Is the forest the problem, or the terrorists? Who are we attacking, right? So if you could give a policy to this, if you could speak to one person right in front of your camera now, and that is a lawmaker or a leader at some point, what would you tell them about how to better implement policies that will favor the environment?
So the problem we have here is not the forest, or it's not people use the forest as habitat. The forest doesn't need you. I mean, the earth doesn't even need humans. Yes, if we are not here, the earth will survive. In fact, it will be a healthier space.
But there's a debate about that it was created for humans.
No, that's fact. And anthropogenic activities, like you said, is one of the core prerequisites for environmental degradation. You understand? Like when we have more of human activities spawning up, more than we have reserves, it's going to tell in the biodiversity of the country or of the region,
of the ecosystem.
Over time. You understand? So that's just how it is. You see, in Kenya, we have a lot of forest reserves. We have a lot of reserves in Kenya. Nigeria can adopt the same. I know we have some that used to, like Yankari and all that, but I don't know if they're still existing.
Yankari still exists.
It still exists, okay. So places like that should be incorporated into reserves. So when you have reserves, then you can have security officials in those kind of porous areas. So when you have security officials in those areas, how would bandits, penetrate there? So it's because those places are porous lands that are not claimed by anybody. So any terrorist can just go to the forest and just claim a habitat there on government's land that doesn't belong to you, and you start claiming, and the government understands this. Yes, the government understands this. I read an headline a couple of days ago that said the issue with banditry is not the attack, is the hostility of the hostages. Like if government should just bombard the terrorists, what about the hostages that are being held? How will they get them out back
safe and
sound? So those are one of the things that the government needs to put into check.
Of time, we might need to just.
But what I would just put is, what I would say is anthropogenic activities, like human activities on Earth, spawns environmental degradation.
Absolutely.
And,
so look, let's get it further now. Okay. Let's talk about business very briefly. Okay. And businesses are increasingly expected to prioritize sustainability. Everybody's talking about don't use fossil fuel, don't use generators, all these plants. Use different ways like solar. We understand solar. But a lot of persons are still saying it's a bit expensive to get solar inverters in your house and all of that. But then the world is moving towards, because now we understand the global situation with crude oil price across the world. The global prices are also not smiling at anybody or any nation in the world. But my question now is, how can environmental awareness really and campaigns become more community driven and help Nigerian companies balance profitability with environmental sustainability? How can they balance this?
Okay, well, the thing is, I think a couple of years ago I took a course on environmental systems awareness. So it has to do about how organizations can effectively manage energy systems. You understand? What you give to the head is what the head gives back to you. So a couple of months ago, I was in Abuja, and we were opportune to drive through. Or I wouldn't mention the name of the parastatal of the organization, but you see those organizations were using heavy and gigantic plants. I mean, like power plants. Yeah, you understand? Like every power plant, and we could feel the heat exhaust from the plants, let's say like at least from like 300 to 400 meters away. Do you understand? So if companies like that can be aware of how the heat that is being emitted into the environment, how harmful it is to the climate action or to the climate goals that we are trying to achieve here, they will be able to understand how to effectively manage energy. I mean, it all boils down to using heavy energy substances to using light energy substances, and I think that is a start towards pushing environmental awareness out. And I talked about restaurants and the packages of food. See, when food companies to understand the effects of using plastics instead of biopacks for food on the human health and the environment, and the aftermath, that means the disposing of the plastic into the atmosphere, into the community or the environment, so they tend to act better. If we use biopack can degrade in less than 4 days without having any effect on the environment. Do you understand?
Yeah, very well.
Plastic takes nothing less than at least 300 years to degrade.
I think that's important to note. So a lot of persons will know that you can reuse bottles instead of just disposing them. Some of them can be reused or recycled, or whichever way. The environment is just as important. Now let's talk about communities. Rural communities, they have issues, and of course, climate change, disproportionately affects vulnerable communities, and this we know. For example, there's a part of the northern hemisphere in the country where a lot of people have gone blind because of winds, and the winds is not just blowing, it's blowing dust into their faces, and this is on a regular basis because they do not have, more like some places are desertificated in a sense. It's like a desert environment because there are no trees, there are no all of those shelter belts that could affect that to make it not cause people harm. But there are many places where a lot of people have gone blind, and it's because of these environmental issues that we have. So how can environmental awareness really, and their campaigns, how can they be more community driven and less urban centered? Because a lot of persons are saying, okay, so let's drive this, so let's use cars that are EVs, let's use cars that are solar powered and all that, but we're not really talking about the communities because they're also affected as well. How can we take all of these policies down to the community level and the rural level to ensure that these people also have the benefit of this understanding and the education that we have?
Okay, well, the thing is, it boils down to, now like you said, awareness. That's the key. Awareness is either in person or the government, are you listening, or government inculcating or privatizing agencies like NGOs to go into the rural area. Now, I think the government are doing one of two things in terms of, let's say, in terms of using corpers here, NYCs, to advocate for climatic actions in the rural areas. So I think the government has been successful to an extent in that particular sector. I mean, using NYC officials or NYC corpers to foster climate actions in rural areas. But you see, it boils down to personalization. I mean, individualism. You see, in the rural area, most people are not informed because they don't really have access to much information. It is rural. So, like you said, the government needs to do much more in terms of awareness in the rural area, because when they are aware, like I said earlier, when they are aware, it becomes, environmental or climate resilience becomes an action. And when climate resilience becomes an action, it becomes something you do habitually, and something you do habitually becomes an habit, and habit becomes a lifestyle. You see, over time, climate resilience has been my lifestyle for years, because I've been aware. I've seen the advantages of being environmentally aware. Now, when you're environmentally aware, you tend to have good water, you tend to have good food, you tend to have
no poverty, zero hunger. Are you trying to list all your SDGs?
No, not even that. Now, when I'm talking about clean water here, you will know better that you don't have to pollute your rivers or your watershed or your water source in order to get clean water for the community. You will get to know that if you don't pollute the land, or if your land is not degraded and your underground water is not toxic, you tend to have good food, and that is food security.
Exactly.
And that also tends to help farmers to incur costs, because what is the essence of how can I go on the farm and spend money on a crop that would yield, and at the end of the day you tend to see that your product is much more acidic or much more basic due to the fact that you have toxic underground water due to industrial affluence or individuals polluting the environment.
I think
Which is
you've
obvious.
made very valid points, Abiodun Morenikeji, and really want to say thank you for your insight on this conversation. I know for want of time, maybe someday we'll still have this kind of conversations and express it a bit more. But for want of time, we have to draw the curtains on this conversation. Thank you once again for joining us. And of course, it's a defining time because we understand the situations in the country, especially how some conversations are not put on the spotlight, but they affect our health, our economy, and every other thing that we have in the country. So I want to say a big thank you to you today for watching the big story on Dominion Television. And remember, it's very important that sustainability is not just a conversation, but it's also a responsibility. So it's a development conversation that we all need to get into. My name is Anulu Akpoido, and on that note, I will draw the curtains on the show today, of course, the big story this morning on Dominion Television. Thank you very much for joining us, and bye for now.